When it comes to trying to decide for yourself if the Final Fantasy precons are worth it for you to buy, you could just look at them and go, all right, the red, white, black Revival Trance deck with Terra, Herald of Hope, has about an $80 market value and has about $60 worth of reprints within it. Or you could take a look at the green, white, and blue deck Counter Blitz featuring Tidus, Yuna's Guardian, having about an $86 market value and containing about $98 worth of reprints within. We could take a look at the white, blue, and black deck Scions and Spellcraft featuring Y'shtola, Knights Blessed, having a $125 market value and featuring about $75 worth of reprints within. Or we could take a look at the red, green, white deck Limit Break featuring Cloud X Soldier, having about a $132 market value and containing about $118 worth of reprints. We're going to take a look at all those aspects for each individual precon and hopefully help you make a good buying decision. If you would take a look at the timeline, I've got the whole video ordered from least valuable reprints in the deck to most valuable reprints in the deck. So scrub through for the deck that you are individually looking for. But do me a favor, if you get any value from any part of this video before you leave, hit that subscribe or that like button. That would be great. Joel, our magic is brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards quickly and easily on the internet. TCG Player, the best place to buy them. Dragon Shield, the best way to protect them. And Moxfield, the best way to put your deck lists on the internet. Terra, Herald of Hope, and Celis Rune Knight are at the front of the Revival Trance Mardu Legendary Reanimator Precon deck from Final Fantasy. This deck has about $60 worth of reprint value in it at time of shooting this and is currently selling for about $80. Those prices are being driven by Archfiend of Depravity. This card's about $3.40. Nice demon reprint here. We also got a pretty sweet Pitiless Plunderer. Currently, a Pitiless Plunderer is going to run you about $3 to go and pick up. And then as far as the cards that are also over $1 in the creature slot, you've got Anger with nice new reprint art there. You've also got Sepulchral Primordial there, about $1 for both of those. New art for all of the cards in this deck. Looking at the sorceries, you've got cards like Reanimate driving some solid value, $7.63 on a copy of Reanimate. Like I said, all new art on these, and the art is also going to drive some momentum on the prices. Ruinous Ultimatum's about a $4 card. You've got Kefka art on it here. Pretty sweet there. This deck just comes with a Rise of the Dark Realms. Pretty sweet. $3.43 market for Rise of the Dark Realms. We just saw this in Foundations, so it's interesting to get a reprint that soon after, but also sort of helped drive down the price of it before it appeared in a precon. We've also got an appearance of Stitched Together in this deck. $3.41 on that. Plus the other sorceries, you've got about $20 worth of reprints on sorceries, and you've got about $12 worth of reprints on your creatures. Looking at your instance, you really don't have anything reprinted in high value. Bedevil, Big Score, Mortify, Crackling Doom, all pretty low in value and not really moving the needle. Artifacts as well, you've got about $5 worth of reprints on artifacts. The Soul Ring is always going to come in at about $1, $1.20. Talisman of Indulgence here also representing about $1.50, and then Swiftfoot Boots in this treatment giving you about $1 worth of value alongside the new Soul Ring there. So artifacts also not really moving the needle. The one that really is the lands, and you're going to see that's a trend for all of these decks. We've got a reprint of the Graven Cairns. These lands that you can pump 1 mana of a hybrid color in and get a divided version of those 2 manas however you want there. That's what this land cycle does, and they've reprinted those in all these decks. Graven Cairns about $5. It's the cheapest of the ones. It has had some reprints, but you've also got high market in this deck, which is pretty sweet, around $3.61 of market value. Hey, for high market. Sulphur Springs after that for about $2, representing a little bit of value, and then Fetid Heath, another one of those from that cycle. You've got about $1 worth of value on the Fetid Heath. All in all, having about $60 worth of reprint value on a $70 MSRP deck. If you want to take a look at some of the new cards that are in this deck and see maybe cards that could have application in other places, I'd look at the Warring Triad. I really like this if we look at the creatures first. That ability, mill a card, target player adds 1 mana of any color. Milliken is a pretty widely played card in decks who care about their graveyard, and so having another sort of mana rock that's got upside that's also allowing you to mill cards, I could see players wanting this long term. And then as long as there are fewer than 8 cards in your graveyard, it's not a creature, but it's got flying, trample, and haste. So as long as we've got 8 or more cards in our graveyard, this is also a hasty threat in the air that could like help finish off the fight if we need some more combat damage, particularly towards the end when we're just trying to grind out the finish. Warring Triad's pretty cool. I also really like Mog Moogle Warrior, and I think players are going to want this commander. It's got lifelink 1/2. At the beginning of your end step, each player may discard a card. Each player who discarded a card this way draws a card, and if a creature was discarded this way, you create a 1/2 white Moogle creature token with lifelink. It says then if a non-creature card was discarded this way, put a +1/+1 counter on each Moogle you control. I think that people are going to want to play Moogle Commander, and Mog Moogle Warrior is definitely it. I also really like Bannon, the Returner's Leader. This is a 2-mana 1/3 legend. It says once during each of your turns, you can cast a creature spell from among cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere other than the battlefield this turn. And whenever you attack, you can pay 1 and discard a card if you do draw a card. Any commander that's in these colors that has to do with discarding, cycling, any sort of milling, that's all going to be applicable for Bannon's ability. And so I think that players are going to be interested in that long term. Also really think Gal Feral Youth has got a ton of combo-y potential. Whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and who cares? But at the beginning of each end step, if a card left your graveyard this turn, Gal deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. I could just burn down the whole table rather quickly if you can figure out a way to consistently get at least 1 card out of your graveyard on everybody's turn. So I think Gal has a lot of potential, especially in decks that can grow his power consistently. And I really love Kefka Dancing Mad. It's hefty. It's 7 mana for a 6/6. It's got Indestructible on your turn and says at the beginning of your end step, exile a card at random from each opponent's graveyard. You can cast any number of spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. Then each player who owns a spell you cast this way loses life equal to its mana value. So it's like got Indestructible, so you definitely will get at least 1 trigger of its ability. But for a Kefka named Dancing Mad, I really like that card and think it's going to be sweet. Taking a peek at the sorceries, there was one that I really liked, and that's Rejoin the Fight, a black and 5 for mill 3 card sorcery. It says then starting with the next opponent in turn order, each opponent chooses a creature card in your graveyard that hasn't been chosen. Return each card chosen this way to the battlefield under your control. So for 6 mana, you're milling 3 cards and you're letting your opponents return some creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. With the instant slot in this one, the new card Espers to Magicide is a 4 mana instant speed. Exile each opponent's graveyard. Respond to their Reanimate. Respond to their Living Death. I'm going to exile each opponent's graveyard. Then, when you do, choose up to 1 target creature card exiled this way. You get to create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's an artifact, and it loses all other card types. I'm really into this card. I think it's super sweet. And so let's talk about how much it will take to upgrade and make this deck playable. Looking at the reprint-only cards, typically I don't like to cut non-reprints until I've play tested a lot with them. The new cards that they print into these decks a lot of times have under synergies that you've just got to figure out through play. With Terra, there were 5 cards in the reprint cards that I immediately want to cut to replace. So 5 cards to replace in a deck, that is pretty good overall as far as like upgradability to make it worth it to buy and have a strong deck right out of the box. Taking a look at Scions and Spellcraft, the Y'shtola Knights Blessed Precon. This one's got about $75 worth of reprint value in it. It's currently on the market for about $125. And so this is definitely one of the most preferred by the market. This one has got people hyped. Looking at the creatures, we have got like no reprint value on these creatures. Archmage Emeritus is around $1.64. You're going to get cool new art with all of these decks, but is that enough to be worth it? $1 on a Torrential Gear Hulk? That's not really enough in the creatures to move the needle in a huge way. Looking at the sorceries, you've got about $3.63 on Crux of Fate. Everything past that is well under $1. Your closest is Vindicated, about 80 cents. Lots of reprints of that card overall. Looking at the instance, we do have one really nice one, and that's Snuff Out. Got a Snuff Out reprint here, $7 on Snuff Out. And then this deck features the Swords to Plowshares from the entire set. So we got that. It's about $1 in this deck as well. Got about $9 worth of instance with a $7 Snuff Out there. And then on your artifacts, you got about $8.68 on Archaeomancer's map. About $15 total on artifacts in the entire box here. Relic of Legends is about $2. And then you got your Soul Ring, all of the precons. The Soul Ring's about $1.20. Gonna represent about that much value in there. This one's got enchantments. The first deck did not have enchantments, but Authority of the Consuls here at $5.32. Gonna give you about $7 of value on the entire set of enchantments here. Propaganda represents about $1.77. Pretty sweet there to include those off the rip. And then you've got Sunken Ruins. This is a $22 land, y'all. All of these decks feature this cycle of lands where you use one hybrid color of mana to filter into whatever combination of those two colors of mana that you want. Sunken Ruins is one of the most expensive at $22. You've got $32 worth of lands in this Y'shtola deck, and $22 worth of it is Sunken Ruins. You've also got Drowned Catacomb, about $1.55 on that one, and you've got Underground River representing about $1.87 overall. And then you got Fetid Heath, which is another one of these filterish lands here, the hybrid filter lands. About $1 of value on that, with Desolate Mire being those filter lands where you take one colorless and pump it into two colors of mana, representing about $1 as well at around 90 cents. So $75 worth of value total. MSRP 70, that makes it a pretty good deal. But with the market price of this deck being $125 right now, let's take a look at the other ways to assess these and see if they've got value for us. Some of the new cards from this set, from this deck that I think might have some play going forward. I'll start with Hermes, Overseer of Elpis. It's a 1 blue 3 other 2/4 says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying and vigilance. This card exists, just not as a legend. Now we have a legend of it. And whenever you attack with one or more birds, scry 2. The non-legendary creature version of this is run in all the relevant decks. I feel like Hermes is just going to follow. I also really love this Elder Dragon, whose name I'm not going to attempt, but 5 mana for a 5/5 with flying vigilance and ward 2. My boomer brain is just absolutely melting over all the keywords and the mana cost of this 5/5. Also says when it enters and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked. That's just a win condition. Absolutely ridiculous. We also got these two partners who, again, I'm not going to pronounce their names, but I really like their abilities. They partner. One's 4 mana, one is 3. They're blue and white. One says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, draw a card, and the other says the second spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. I think those are pretty cool commander options in blue-white with a little second spell synergy. And then the legendary creature reanimator lover in me really likes Ardbert here. 3 mana for a 2/2 says whenever you cast a white spell, put a +1 counter on each legend you control. They gain vigilance until end of turn. And then whenever you cast a black spell, put +1 counter on each legend you control. They gain menace until end of turn. Legendary creature decks are going to absolutely love that creature and really, really want it. I'm going to skip to the enchantments. There's no sorceries, instants, and artifacts that I'm really in love with as far as the new cards from this deck. There's some good stuff, just nothing I'm super crazy about. But the enchantments, there's 3 in here that I think are just so cool. A blue and 3 for Observe Stasis. It's got flash. Says enchant creature an opponent controls. Whenever this aura enters, remove enchanted creature from combat. Then draw a card for each tapped creature its controller controls. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and can't attack or block. Sorry, your biggest thing's not getting through this turn. By the way, I'm drawing a few cards. By the way, it has no passives anymore either, and it can't attack or block anymore going forward. Thank you for observing the stasis. I love that one. I also really like Eye of Nidhogg. It's a 3 mana legendary enchantment. It's got enchant creatures. Says enchanted creatures, a black dragon with base power and toughness 4/2, flying, death touch, and goaded. So you can put it on your own thing, make it a flying, death touching 4/2, and that always has to attack, or put it on your opponent's thing and force it to attack and not attack you. Then the coolest part here, whenever it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it just goes back to your hand. You can constantly be turning your opponent's creatures into dragons that must kill your other opponents. Also really love Champions from Beyond, 2 white and X. Whenever this enchantment enters, create X 1/1 colorless hero creature tokens. That's fine, but whenever you attack with 4 more creatures, scry 2, draw a card. Whenever you attack with 8 or more creatures, those creatures get +4/+4 until end of turn. You could just play this for 2, homies. You could just play this for 2 and have that enchantment. Whenever you attack with 4 or more, scry 2, draw a card. Whenever you attack with 8 or more, they just get 4/4. every turn, because this is just an enchantment. I think those enchantments are really sweet in this deck, and all three are interesting to me for other builds as well. And then as far as how much it needs to be upgraded to be super playable, I'm going to have a full upgrades video on all four of these decks. Make sure you go find that on the channel. It'll be there soon if it's not already there when you're watching this. But with this one, when I went through it, I only like to cut as much as possible from the reprints when I'm upgrading these decks. From the reprints, there were 6 cards that I wanted to cut from this deck. So 6 cards needing to be replaced, not terrible, especially when a lot of those are going to get replaced with very basic removal, card draw, advantage, ramp. That kind of card is where you're going to focus most of the upgrades when you're upgrading via my strategies anyway. Taking a look at Counter Blitz featuring Tidus and Yuna. We've got a Bant deck here with about $98 worth of reprint value in it. Pretty good overall for one of the least hyped of the 4 decks. Currently market value $86. So right now the reprint value at time of shooting this is more than the actual market value of the deck, just based on the hype and speculation. That is being represented by Walking Ballista at about $10. Your creatures in total, of which there are a lot in this deck, you got about $37 of creatures reprint value in here, which is pretty crazy. Walking Ballista at about $10.17. You got Bane of Progress at around $7. This one just enters and destroys all artifacts and enchantments, which with this deck being mostly creature based, there's not a ton. You could still catch your own in there, but about $7 on Bane of Progress. Then you got Generous Patron around $5.85. Putting counters on creatures when it enters, letting you draw cards when you put counters on creatures you don't control. Nice little ability there. You got Gyre Sage at around $2.92 here, a little evolving mana dork for the deck. Incubation Druid is around $2.81, nearly $3 on a couple of these mana dorks here. Pretty sweet. You're getting new art on the entire deck, which is awesome. Rampant Rejuvenator giving you about $2.87 worth of value here at time of shooting. Scholar of New Horizons, worth about $1.91 here is the Scholar, one of those over $1 cards. You've also got a Luminous Broodmoth reprint in here, $1.30 worth of value on this mythic. Pretty sweet. Every other creature in here that is a reprint creature is all under $1, but that Walking Ballista, over a $10 creature, pretty sweet. If we look at the sorceries, you've got a very surprising one. Damning Verdict. This is an $18.92 card. This is nearly a $20 board wipe. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. That's all you're trying to do in this deck, is put +1 counters, any type of counter really, but it focuses a lot on +1 counters, obviously, because that's going to be your strongest, most supported over time strategy. Damning Verdict is going to let you board wipe in a way that your board is mostly going to survive. This deck also comes with a 3 visits, which is really sweet. $6.87 worth of value on a 3 visits right now. It's because you can go get a forest. It doesn't specify basic forest. That's why this card is always so particularly more expensive of the baseline ramp pieces. 3 visits letting you go get any of the lands that have a land type forest, your Triomes, your Shocks, those Surveil lands. And there's a Farewell in this deck featuring the Titanic pose. Pretty sweet. $4.26 of value on a Farewell in this deck. Don't choose all the modes, please. We want to finish the game. Farseek, about $1. Again, letting you search up a land type, not a basic land. And on the sorceries, that's where your value really lies. Everything else is under $1 there. On your instance, you've got an Offer You Can't Refuse. New art on all these, but new art on this one as well. $1.66 worth of value there. You've also got a Destroy Evil in here, which is almost $1. Represented on this common, you got an enchantment removal, little destruction spell, nice versatility at instant speed there. Not a ton of artifacts in here. On all of the decks, the Soul Ring represents about $1.20 worth of value. You got new art, different art on all of those, which is pretty sweet. Then in your enchantments, you've got a Resourceful Defense, which is a $9 card. This is an enchantment. Whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, move those counters on a target permanent you control, and then 5 mana to move any number of counters from a permanent you control to a second permanent you control. You can understand why that would be really good in this deck. Scarce, $9. Nice to have that as a reprint in this deck because you would definitely want it. Inexorable Tide, same thing. $3.33 here. Not bad. Cast a Spell, Proliferate. That's what we're trying to do. And then the deck comes with a Hardened Scales. They've really been reprinting this one, y'all. They've got the price down pretty far. It's $2.50 for a Hardened Scales at this point. Really good in the deck, though. It really makes sense. And then the lands. This is the only deck that doesn't have a land that's worth more than like $1 or $2. Brushland is like $1.80, and that's about where it falls. You got Sun Petal Grove in here that's about $1. And then you're looking at that filter land that is expensive in most of the other decks. That one and this one is Flooded Grove, and it's worth like 20 cents. It's been reprinted so many times. So this one doesn't have that same land really kicking it over the top, but with $30 on sorceries, $37 on creatures, it's got some significant reprint value, considering that it's $98 of reprint value for a MSRP $70 deck that's going for like 86 bucks right now. Looking at the newly printed cards in these decks that I like and think have some playability long term, I want to start with Lulu Stern Guardian, a blue and 2 for a 2/3. Whenever an opponent attacks you, choose target creature attacking you, put a stun counter on that creature, and then you can pay 4 mana to proliferate that stun counter. Just absolutely push that creature into oblivion, never waking up. I like Lulu as sort of a propaganda-ish type ability. That's pretty sweet. Chocobo Knights is a 4 mana 3/3. Whenever you attack creatures you control with counters on them, gain double strike until end of turn. How many +1 counter decks do you know would want that card? Auron's a 4 mana 2/5 with vigilance. Whenever he attacks, you put a +1 counter on him, and when you do, you exile a creature defending player controls with power less than his power until he's gone. I love tucking creatures under other creatures. This is such a cool ability, and to be able to do it multiple times if you can get multiple attacks off, really sweet removal piece there. Waka, Devoted Guardian, 4 mana 4/4, reach and trample. Deals combat damage. You destroy up to 1 target artifact that player controls, and you put a counter on it. And then at the beginning of your end step, if a counter was put on Waka this turn, put a +1 counter on each other creature you control. You don't have to put a counter on Waka via his ability for that passive at the bottom to trigger. You can just get a counter on him some way through other means in your 99, and then your entire line is going to get +1 counters if that happens. Really love that. And then we got a big version of Sin here, which is super cool. 7 mana for a 5/5 with flying and trample. As it enters, remove all counters from any number of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. Sin enters with X +1 counters on it, where X is twice the number of counters removed this way. And then when Sin dies, you put its counters on target creature you control, then shuffle this card. Probably won't break the bank long term, but Sin is a really fun creature that I think is cool, especially in +1 counter decks. I like this card, Protection Magic, from the instance. Put a shield counter on each of up to 3 target creatures. Just respond and save 3 creatures for 2 mana. It's no heroic intervention, but I could see building this into some of my more creature-based decks, especially if they want counters and have counter synergy. I could see wanting to put shield counters on them. And then I really like Summoner's Sending and Sphere Grid from the enchantment. Summoner's Sending is a 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you can exile a creature from a graveyard. Nice little targeted removal there against the graveyard decks. And if you do, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying and put a counter on it if the exile card's mana value is 4 or greater. Then you've also got Sphere Grid, which is a 2 mana. I just want to look at the bottom ability. Creatures you control with +1 counters on them have reach and trample for 2 mana. Pretty sweet on an enchantment. Then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1 counter on it, so it just continues to grow. Pretty sweet +1 counter synergy cards in this deck, obviously, and I think those are going to be the ones that really hold this deck long term. If I'm looking at upgrading this deck, typically I don't like to cut the new cards, so just looking at the reprint cards that I would cut from this deck, there are only 5 of them. 5 cards that I would swap into other cards, more playable, very consistent cards. Targeted removal, ramp, card draw, that's where the upgrades are going to go. Make sure you check out my upgrades video for a full breakdown on how I would upgrade this deck. If that video is not available right now at time of posting this video, it'll be available soon. Go look for it. I'll drop a card up here. The Limit Break deck featuring Cloud, X Soldier, and Tifa Martial Artist. This one has got the most hype. It's currently $132 on the market, and it's got about $118 worth of reprint value in it. Very cool deck here. Looking at the creatures, got a Hellkite Tyrant that's worth about $4.78. Nice little win con. If you've got 20 or more artifacts, we can understand why it's in there. Sweet having a Professional Facebreaker in here. New art. You got new art on all these decks across all the cards, mostly except the lands, obviously. You got $4.65 worth of value on Professional Facebreaker there. Also got an Armory Automaton, which is pretty sweet in an equipment deck, which this very much is. Cloud wants to pick up a sword and attack things. And that's what you're going to be doing. $3.73 worth of value on the Armory Automaton. And then $2.82 on Bronze Guardian. Another artifact, equipment, attacking base deck that makes sense. You got a Bastion Protector, about 50 cents. And then you got Pure Steel Paladin at about $1, representing some pretty solid reprint value of creatures in this deck. When you look at sorceries, you got a Nature's Lore for $2.56. Not bad. Pretty sweet little ramp spell there. Search your library for a forest, put it onto the battlefield. Really good to go get any non-basic. Vandal Blast is going to give you about $1.58 worth of value right now. Cloud featured in this one. And then Unfinished Business has got about $1 worth of value. Little reanimation spell that also grabs auras and equipments. Makes sense why that's in there. The Instance. We got $20 worth of value on the Instance, and it's because Clever Concealment is worth $18.83. And look, this card features a pretty famous, infamous moment in Final Fantasy VII where you have to put on a dress and sneak into a brothel and pass as a woman as Cloud. And so you got to go around and grab a dress and grab a wig. And that is an entire quest line. That being featured on this card automatically makes it like a meme card, if that makes sense. And then the spell itself is also very powerful. Clever Concealment's quite a powerful instant speed spell, especially for creature-based stuff. And that's shown in the $19 worth of value currently on it. And I'm telling you, that meme version, it's got potential long-term. Dispatch represents about $1.26 worth of value, also being an instant in there that is worth a little bit, though not quite as much as Clever Concealment. The artifacts are where this deck really shines. There's $43 worth of artifacts in this deck, starting with Sword of the Animist, a $9.32 artifact. Great equipment, goes into any equipment deck. It's just such a strong one. $9.32 on that. You got $8.36 on Darksteel Plate. Give the equipped creature indestructible, and this thing has indestructible. Conqueror's Flail getting a reprint here. $6 of value on this Conqueror's Flail. You're getting all new art on all these across all of the decks pretty much, so that's something to look into as well. You got Genova here on Skull Clamp, $5.30 worth of value on your Skull Clamp. You got $4.39 on Lightning Greaves. As you can see, the value of these decks can really add up as they pump these $4 to $6 cards in here. You were going to need these for the deck anyway. Colossus Hammer, we're down to $2.87 in that $3 range now for the artifacts, but you can see how many I've already shown from one category, and you can know that that's not common. For Trailblazers Boots at $2.74. For this kind of deck to have this many solid over $1 reprints. Champion's Helm worth $1.74. Legendary creature getting hexproof and +2/+2. And then your Soul Ring. All of the Soul Rings in all of the decks, they have new and different art, by the way. And all of the Soul Rings are worth about $1.20. That's about the cost of a Soul Ring right now. So the artifacts have got some really, really sick value there. 2 enchantments included, 1 reprint, 1 non-reprint, no value there. And then we're to the lands. Y'all, $30 worth of lands, and it's on a $21 Firelit Thicket. This is the big reprint cycle in these decks. A few of the decks got a really expensive land, and it was one of these. That hybrid mana filtering into whatever combination you want of the 2 colors of mana you could have spent to activate that ability. That's $21 worth of value on this one land right there. Past that, you got a brush land that's worth about $1.80, and then you got a Sun Petal Grove that is worth about $1 as well. All in all, the best reprint value of the entire set, and that's very largely driven by Clever Concealment and Firelit Thicket being both about $20 cards. Taking a look at the non-reprint cards that I really like in this deck, we'll start with the creatures and we'll take a look at Vincent, Vengeful Atoner. 3 mana, 3/3 menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you put a +1 counter on Vincent. But this Chaos ability, whenever Vincent deals combat damage to an opponent, deals that much damage to each other opponent if Vincent's power is 7 or greater. Aggro players are going to know any kind of damage spread ability like that is going to be so fantastic. Yuffie, Materia Hunter, 3 mana, 3/3. It's got ninjutsu, but when it enters, You gain control of target non-creature artifact for as long as you control her. And then you can attach an equipment you control to her as well. That's just a lot of enters the battlefield abilities on a 3-mana creature. Then you got Sephiroth Fallen Hero, which this card is one of my favorite in all of the Commander set. 5-mana, 7/5 human avatar soldier. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, and you can put a cell counter on a creature. Until end of turn, each modified creature you control has base power and toughness 7/5. You could already have your creatures modified, y'all. If you got an attacking line full of +1 countered up creatures, you got a bunch of 7/5s whenever Sephiroth attacks. Then the Reunion, pay 3, sack a modified creature to return Sephiroth from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Sephiroth just keeps returning with that ability to make all of your creatures 7/5. I love that creature so much. Then you've also got Proud Warrior here, 3-mana, 3/3, Vigilance, Trample. Other modified creatures you control have Vigilance and Trample. That's the part of this I really love on a 3-mana card. Then when it enters, you can return an aura or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. I just think this is going to be a staple of red and green aura or equipment decks, especially that passive giving everything Vigilance and Trample. I really like that. If we look at the instance, I really like Ultimate Magic Meteor. There's a couple of Ultimate Magics in this deck that you can foretell, and they have a better ability or more ability if you have foretold them or you're casting them from exile. Ultimate Magic Meteor deals 7 damage to each creature, and if this spell was cast from exile for each opponent, you choose an artifact or land they control and destroy the chosen permanents. Really like Ultimate Magic. I think that's pretty sweet. We've also got Lifestream's Blessing, which is this Rishkar's Expertise kind of card. 6 mana. It's one of those foretell cards. It's 6 mana for its instant speed. Draw X cards where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you cast this spell. You know this deck, it has to do with power 7 or greater. And so Lifestream's Blessing very often should be hitting 7 for you. Then if it was cast from exile, if you foretold it, you're also going to gain twice X life. That's the part I really like. I think that's pretty cool. You don't get anything for free, but getting a little life gain on top of the draw, pretty good for an aggro deck that's trying to turn things sideways and leave everything open basically so that you can attack. There are 3 artifacts that I really like from this deck. First is Summoning Materia, 3 mana for an artifact equipment. You can look at the top card of your library at any time. And then as long as this is equipped to something, you can cast creature spells from the top of your library. The equipped creature's getting +2/+2, has Vigilance, and becomes a green mana dork, and the equip is only 2. I just think that's a ton of value, and a lot of decks are going to find playability out of that. I really like Conformer Shuriken as well. 2 mana for a legendary artifact. Equipped creature has whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player control, so that can't block anymore. And then if that creature has greater power than this creature, put a number of +1 counters on this creature equal to the difference. So your creature is growing, their biggest blocker is completely shut off, and it only has an equip of 2. I think it's a really sweet legendary artifact. And Wrecking Ball Arm, also a really sweet legendary artifact. Equipped creature has base power and toughness 7/7 and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and it equips to a legend for just 3 mana. I really think that Wrecking Ball Arm is super cool. When I make upgrades to these decks, I don't like to cut brand new cards. I only like to cut reprints so that we can get some playtest time with the new cards before we decide if we're going to cut them or not. Out of this deck, I would cut 3, only 3 of the reprint cards, because I don't think that they're synergistic really well, or we just need some more common, consistent value stuff. Target removal, card draw, ramp, things like that. Having only 3 cuts is a very low number of cuts that I think need to be made to this, which speaks to its power level and playability right out of the box. I've got an entire video upgrading all 4 of these decks. Go check that out. It's either out or will be out soon if this video came out before it. The MSRP of each of these 4 decks is $70, making the combined total $280. Right now, they are market price about $360 for all 4 decks. There's a lot of FOMO. A lot of people who are worried that they're not going to be able to get these decks, and I just want to encourage some patience on the base level decks. The collector decks are an entirely different subject, but the main commander decks, the base versions of these, regardless of price, they will be higher. Some of them individually will be higher, some of them will be lower, but they will be available. Look at the Hosts of Mordor. This is the most hyped one from the Commander Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set. It's been over $100 at some points, and it's sort of settled back down. They'll get multiple print runs, will these? They won't get reprints, so to speak, but they'll get multiple print runs. And you can see even right out of the gate, the hype is at a level and then slowly falls off. Let's compare that to the least hyped of those 4 decks, also around that $50 mark. High hype and then fall off. You can grab it right now for about 40 bucks versus the, over 50, nearly 70, $69. Nice. That this would have cost you. Lord of the Rings was printed back in 2023, and so these, as you can see, have this sort of flattening out, falling trend overall. Look at the entire set of the Fallout decks. A ton of hype, over 200 when these came out, but it has slowly fallen, and now you can get all of these for around $160. Now, when they do exit their print run and they are no longer being printed, they will take the time to climb in price. Over the last year, the Warhammer decks in particular have been climbing in price, but you can see for the longest time around $200, just over, under $230 most of the time, down to $180, $170s here, market price for all 4 decks, but then they eventually will fall off. So use these charts as a way of just discouraging yourself from FOMOing out, overpaying for these like crazy. Remember that they are $70 MSRP, even though that price won't necessarily hold, because you saw from the reprint value that they will be compared differently and demanded differently. Not just that, but also character wise as well. If you're still watching at this point, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. If you want to support me even further, go plug into my Patreon. Got a great community over there. You can play Community Commander Night with us every Thursday night, maybe even show up on stream with me. And you can get yourself a free pack of Dragon Shields. Here's one of the designs we have available for you to pick from. If you join at the right level, we got free Dragon Shields, we got a free playmat, the whole 9 yards. Go check it out, see if it's a good fit for you. Other than that, let me know if you're getting any of these 4, if you think any of my analysis is off. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.